Hello luxury watch lovers! In this channel I cover the background, fundamental design features, and things to consider before buying your watch. If you have a luxury watch that you'd like me to cover, let me know in the comments below. In today's video, we're going to do the comparison between Seiko Turtle and Seiko LX. Both with the same name on the dial as well as being part of the same family in terms of the Prospex collection, but have two very different prices. One being $600 and the other being $6,000. So today we'll take a closer look at what's the difference between these two watches. Seiko's modern SRP Turtles, which were introduced in 2016, made a significant impression with their classic good looks, premium feel, and extremely affordable pricing. The SRP Turtles are contemporary versions of Seiko's 63069 cushion-case diving watches from the 1970s and 1980s. The Prospex SRP775 Diver, nicknamed the Turtle, shares the cushion-shaped casing design and size of the original 6309. The crown, bezel, hands, and even the embossed logo on the back are all essentially the same. Of course, there are a few differences. For instance, the second's hand still uses a lollipop, but it is implemented differently, and the water resistance rating has also been enhanced, and the movement has been upgraded as well. The SRP775 comes standard on one of Seiko's superb stainless steel bracelets and has a black face with gold hands and indicators. There are also many additional strap and color combinations available. The SRP775's on-wrist comfort is exceptional for such a big watch due to the cushion case. The design may be retro, but it works far beyond just style. Now, coming towards Seiko LX. Seiko definitely raised the bar once more with the Prospex LX during their Bezel World 2019 press conference. Seiko Prospex LX SNR029J is one of a set of 6 exquisitely over-spec'd Prospex watches in the series. All 3 Prospex LX variants are available in an all-black finish, and all of the models are made of titanium. Titanium, as many people believe, is too light on the wrist. Yet the Seiko Prospex LX is a massive watch with a diameter of 44.8 mm and a thickness of 15.7 mm. So, despite the fact that it is made of titanium, it is quite heavy. The Prospex LX is easily associated with Grand Seiko due to both the price and the spring drive movement. Because it does not have the Grand Seiko's finish, some people thought the price was a bit absurd. That's not entirely accurate though, as the titanium casing was polished using the same Zaratsu mirror blade polishing method as their Grand Seiko timepieces. Now, we'll take an in-depth look at the specifications of Seiko Turtle and Seiko LX watches. Zooming in on design features. Firstly, we're looking at the model Seiko Prospex SRP775, which has a case size of 45 mm and a height of 13.3 mm. It has a lug-to-lug of 47.5 mm and a lug width of 22 mm. This watch has a Seiko 24 dual automatic 4R36 self-winding movement. Its black dial, Lumi Bright on the hands and indexes, are protected by a Hardlex mineral crystal, and it has a water resistance of up to 200 meters. You can expect to pay about $550 for this watch. Next up, we'll be taking a look at the Seiko Prospex SRP775 which has a case size of 44mm and a height of 15.7mm. We're looking at a lug-to-lug of 50.4mm and a lug width of 22mm. This watch has a Japanese automatic spring drive 5R65 movement. Its black dial, Lumi Bright on hands and indexes are both protected by a sapphire crystal, and it has a very impressive water resistance of up to 300 meters. And this watch is priced at about $6,000. Without any prior knowledge, you might have some difficulty in deciding which one of the two is the more elevated model in terms of the price given. So let's take a look at a few things you need to consider before buying either one of these watches. Starting with number 1, the case. The Turtles cushion case gives the watch a very distinctive appearance. It's also where the unofficial nickname Turtle comes from. The case is 45mm in width and 47.5mm in height from lug to lug. The watch's lugs are 22mm wide and 13.3mm thick. Sure, it's a big watch, but it's not oversized. The size feels purposeful and not bloated in the way that so many modern divers are. The case is rounded at the bottom and the crown is recessed, so nothing digs into the wrist and the watch practically floats on the wrist. Overall, it's just an amazingly well-executed watch that makes the most of its size through clever design. The 120-click unidirectional rotating bezel has a black aluminium insert with a gilt dive scale and a triangle with a luminescent dot at 12 o'clock. The black finish of the bezel has a grain texture that contrasts beautifully with the gilded numbers and graduations. Additionally, the circular brushing on the top of the case's entire surface contrasts with the 2 rows of polished, knurled grooves that run around the outer flange of the bezel. The case back is solid steel screwed down and engraved with Seiko's Tsunami Air Diver motif. The crown is set at 4 o'clock and measures 7mm in diameter, with rigid sides and a polished cap without a logo. Since this is a 200-meter diver, it is screwed down and the crystal, case back, and crown are all sealed with gaskets. When it comes to the Seiko Prospex Alex, the case measures 44mm wide and has a lug-to-lug height of roughly 50.4mm. The watch has a lug width of 22mm and is 15.7mm thick. It is a big watch, but it's light because it's made completely of titanium, with the exception of a few clasp components. This makes it more comfortable to wear than steel Seiko diving watches of the same size. It also has a screw-down case back, and the 3-part case construction is the key reason for its increase in height. The SNR029 exhibits the superb design and also excellent quality of machining in the smallest of details. Thoughtful design can be found on the crown and bezel, which have a more geometric industrial look. The crown is wider and taller, and it has the resolute look of a diving tool and is also easier to operate because of its larger size. And the bezel edge has wider hexagonal notches that articulate a strong functional beauty. Due to the relatively high scratch susceptibility of titanium alloys, the titanium case features a super hard coating, also known as Dia Shield, that improves the surface hardness so it doesn't scratch easily. The coating is probably a thin layer of ceramic, the kind that is frequently applied in industrial settings to improve corrosion resistance and reduce friction-induced surface wear. Moving on to number 2, the dial. The matte black dial of the Prospex SRP775 has gold-plated Lumi Bright hour markers and gilt print. The centrally mounted large hour and minute hands have gold plating that complements the gilt dial and bezel. The front half of the hand is gold-plated, while the back half is matte black lume inside the circle. Although the lume on this watch isn't the brightest we've ever seen, the luminescent level on the hands and markers is rather generous and intense. Not to mention, the large markers and hands make the dial extremely easy to read at a glance, day or night. At 12 o'clock, the dial's printed script reads Seiko in gilt lettering, and at 6 o'clock, the new Prospex X logo with automatic divers 200 meters just beneath it. Overall, the dial's printing is done extremely elegantly. The dial of a diver's watch is one of its most important components, since it must be readable in difficult circumstances, such as underwater. You also need to be able to read the position of the minute hand, and that's no problem with the Seiko Prospex SRP775 Diver. The large hour and minute hands have also been fully brushed and filled with Lumi Bright. There is a glowing dot on the second hand as well, due to the lack of an additional time zone scale and an additional GMT hand. The dial of the Seiko Prospex Alex SNR029J is probably the cleanest of the Alex series. It has 12 big visible hour markers and a double one at 12 o'clock and none where the date aperture is positioned. On the dial, we find the Prospex logo X and the indication that it indeed is a spring drive movement that powers this watch. Hopping across to number 3, the movement. Inside the cushion case of Seiko Prospex SRP775 beats Seiko's workhorse 4R36 automatic movement. It is a more modern movement that Seiko produces in-house in Japan and has manual winding and the ability to hack the second hand for precise second hand setting. Caliber 4R36 has a power reserve of 41 hours. Although the movement is hidden, it is insulated against shocks and magnetism like its predecessor and has an industrial finish that keeps the cost down. On the dial of the Seiko Prospex Alex, we can see the Prospex logo X and the indication that this watch is powered by a spring drive movement. The spring drive 5R65 caliber elevates the watch over a typical mechanical movement and makes the watch simply more high-end. With a power reserve of 72 hours and a power reserve indicator, this movement allows you to remove the watch for a few days while wearing something else, and then put it back on without having to reset the time or date. It is a mechanical watch with quartz precision, and its timekeeping is less sensitive to variations induced by environmental influences, such as temperature fluctuations, shock, or magnetism. And last but not least, number 4, the bracelet. The SRP775 comes standard with one of Seiko's finest stainless steel straps. The stainless steel H-link bracelet has an extension to make it easier to put on over a wetsuit. The links of the Turtles bracelet feel precise and tight, and it fits snugly in the case. The link edges are also polished for comfort and smoothness. The watch weighs 181 grams with the included steel strap, whereas the watch itself weighs 92.3 grams. It is a little excessive that the bracelet weighs 88.7 grams all by itself. The watch barely weighs more than 100 grams in total with a nylon NATO strap to it. Wearing it with a lighter strap is way more comfortable than wearing it with the bracelet. But the bracelet aesthetic makes it worth the extra weight. On the other hand, the design of the bracelet also fits the Prospex Alex case perfectly. The bracelet is titanium, just like the case, and has all the typical Prospex Diver bracelet features, including a ratcheting extension built into the clasp. It has a simple design that lets the extension glide out of the clasp upon lifting the safety buckle to its extreme. Unlike the other parts of the watch, the clasp is purely functional. It genuinely looks like a tool. The moving parts of the clasp are primarily made of titanium and steel. In terms of design, the bracelet complements the case very nicely. The links on the bracelet are more plain looking than the links on the majority of Prospex bracelets, which often have polished borders on the middle link. The simplicity suits a dive watch, but the bracelet still has a bit of embellishment, a beveled lower edge that neatly echoes the shape of the lugs. Each link is held in place by a friction-fit pin and tube, a proven technique that is fail-proof and secure but not very user-friendly because the links are hard to adjust. The fact that each link is held in place by a pin, however, means that any number of links may be removed, which helps achieve a good fit. The majority of bracelets from older generations, however, only had a small number of detachable links, making it hard to adjust the size to fit specific wrists. Looking at these two watches side by side and trying to understand where this price discrepancy is a really good example to understand why some watches are so expensive. There's a lot of things that go beyond appreciation. In general, these are two interesting pieces here, with Seiko Turtle being much more palatable in terms of its price and being a very awesome looking watch. Then transitioning over to the Seiko Alex watch, where $6,000 for a watch is not very pocket-friendly, but it is a professional-grade diver's watch, and despite the higher-than-usual price tag for this Seiko, one could reasonably argue that these are in fact somewhat of a bargain at the current list price. And this wraps up my review of the Seiko Turtle versus Seiko Alex. I've provided a link below if it strikes your fancy. Thank you for watching this video right through to the very end. Let me know in the comments what you think about these two watches. And remember, time is your greatest asset.